The 1980s were a great decade for children's animated shows. We had He-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man, and so many more exciting shows with original concepts. For me, the most entertaining of them all was ThunderCats. Cat-like humanoids trying to establish a colony on Third Earth after their planet Thundera was destroyed. Had to deal with not just the mutants on Third Earth, but their nemesis, Mumm Ra. Since the 1980s, there have been a lot of attempts at resurrecting the franchise, but nothing seems to give ThunderCats the popularity the original show had. One of these attempts was ThunderCats The Return, a sequel to the ThunderCats miniseries, Reclaiming Thundera, which had ended with Lion-O killing Grune and entering the Book of Omens to train for a period of 5 years. The sequel was so dark that many accused it of ruining their childhood. Is there any basis to these claims? Let's find out. A new Thundera. We start in a dark nook of Thundera where Snarf, at the brink of insanity, speaks to the Book of Omens. He tells the book that since he found the key, he can go in and bring back Lion-O. He then responds as if the book asked him to leave Lion-O be, and tells it that it needs to return to Thundera to see what has happened. He argues with the book, which cannot speak by the way, that Lion-O will recognise him as his friend. He throws the book away in anger, reassuring himself that Lion-O probably has a reason for being gone so long. He then rushes to the book, apologising for hurting it. The book has been his only friend for the past few years, so he promises not to throw it again, and asks it to understand that Thundera needs Lion-O as he is their king. Telling the book that only Lion-O could save Thundera, he uses the key and enters the book. Inside the book, Lion-O fiercely battles two warriors and defeats them with ease. When Snarf sees Lion-O, he hugs him with a lot of love, which throws Lion-O off as he thinks he's been only gone since the day before. Snarf explains that it's been 5 years since he's entered the book. Lion-O is in disbelief as time is supposed to be at a standstill inside the book, but Snarf tells him that it might be the doing of Mumm Ra. He also updates Lion-O on everything that has happened since he's entered the book. Panthro was ruling in Lion-O's stead, and everything seemed to be going well, as many refugees had returned, the city had been built, and their civilization had been established. They even had a state-of-art mining operation, would have been made sure there was enough Thundrillium for years to come, but this happiness and peace would not last long. A year later, Mumm Ra returned. He hadn't really gone anywhere, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Thundera was caught off guard, as they hadn't really formed a new military, thinking they wouldn't need one. Why would anyone ever think that? Needless to say, Mumm Ra and his mutant army had laid waste to the city. Thunderians had fought valiantly, but lost. Hundreds of thousands of Thunderians were either killed or enslaved. Some disappeared, never to be heard from again. Mumm Ra wanted to make an example out of Panthro, and reserved him for the harshest punishment when he refused to serve Mumm Ra. No wonder Snarf had lost it. Snarf was not given much attention, as he had never posed that much of a threat anyway. Mumm Ra wanted to snuff out Lion-O too, but he could not find the book, as Panthro had entrusted it with Snarf. So he had asked Slithe, his lizard general, to destroy the key. The key was way too powerful for Slithe to destroy it, so he threw it away in a place he thought no one would find it, but clever Snarf had found it and freed his king. Lion-O had a hard time believing it, but he trusts Snarf and blames himself for Thundera's downfall. Knowing that he has no time for a pity party, Lion-O returns to Thundera with Snarf. Neither Thundera nor Mumm Ra was as Lion-O remembered. Mumm Ra had remade Thundera in his own image, replacing the cat imagery with himself and Mut. Snarf reminds him that there are no ThunderCats anymore, only Lion-O, but Lion-O points out that he still has Snarf's loyalty, and the ThunderCats might have been beaten, broken and scattered all across the kingdom, but they were still the ThunderCats. Once the team was back together, they would have enough strength to fight back. Snarf isn't hopeful at all, because he knows that they are the minority now, and many of the mutant army still served Mumm Ra as slave masters and foot soldiers. Mumm Ra had grown powerful during the time too. Lion-O, ever the optimist, asked Snarf to hold on to hope and faith like he had in the past few years, and though it was not to be easy, Lion-O had trained for the better part of the last 5 years, so he could put up a strong fight against Mumm Ra. He reminds Snarf that he's no longer a prince, but the lord of the ThunderCats, hell-bent on leading his people to victory with no mercy for Mumm Ra. He asks the powerful Sword of Omens to show him where Panthro is, and the mysterious sword delivers, showing Panthro working in the mines. He asks Snarf to lead him to the mine. Meanwhile, in a pyramid not far away, Mumm Ra celebrates the arrival of Lion-O, as he would finally have a challenge. He claps to summon his slaves to help him prepare to take on Lion-O, and I nearly gasped out loud when these slaves, none other than Wily Kit and Wily Cat, now no longer kitten. A long-awaited reunion. While Lion-O enters the cat's lair to find a cloak, Snarf refuses to go in as he's traumatized by what happened to Bengali there. I can only assume Bengali died in the fight against Mumm Ra. Inside the cat's lair, Lion-O sees a skeleton hanging on the entrance with a warning written in blood to anyone who dares oppose Mumm Ra. When he returns, Snarf laments the state of the Thunderians, saying that the dead are the lucky ones as they don't have to suffer. Lion-O asks him if he's ready to put an end to their suffering, and the two leave for the mine. The mines were guarded by two mutant soldiers. As soon as Lion-O shows himself, one of them quivers in surprise while the other attacks him. Within seconds, Lion-O snaps his neck and kills him. He then asks the other guard to tell him where he is. The guard pretends not to know what Lion-O is talking about, but Lion-O threatens to give him the same fate as his colleague if he doesn't answer. The terrified guard tells him that Panthro was in the hardest detail at the bottom of the third shaft. As mercy, Lion-O only knocks him out and takes Snarf inside, hurrying in to make sure Mumm Ra doesn't catch a whiff of him. It might be too late for that, as Mumm Ra has been keeping an eye on Lion-O through his magical cauldron. He asks Wily Kit to fetch his dog so they can watch the moment when Lion-O meets Panthro. The ancient spirits of evil chastise Mumm Ra for letting Lion-O win, but Mumm Ra shuts them by reminding them that they serve him and not the way round. He also threatens to give them the same fate as their brother. They dare question it. He explains himself, though, telling him that he's not letting Lion-O win, but merely toying with him. He just wanted Lion-O to think he had any chance of defeating Mumm Ra before crushing all his hopes. Just then, Wily Kit returns with Mahmud, but Mumm Ra is angry that she took so long and punishes her with his magic. As Wily Kit writhes in pain, he returns to his scheduled programming. In the mines, Lion-O sends Snarf to draw the guard towards him, and with his iconic battle cry, "ThunderCats, ho!" he kills the guards. Panthro sheds a tear as Lion-O breaks the chains binding him, and tells him that he never gives up hope. Lion-O hands Panthro his nunchucks, with a reminder they had to fight their way out. One of the enslaved Thunderians in the mines asks Lion-O to leave with no worries, as he and the rest of the Thunderians there would sure make and take care of the guards. Though Lion-O does not want to leave them there, the Thunderian reminds him that this is the perfect cover, as Mumm Ra would think Panthro's escape as a minor riot. Pun fully intended. If he figures out it's a full-blown rebellion, they might have a bigger problem. Lion-O promises a day when Thundera is free again and hurries out with Snarf and Panthro. Snarf asks Lion-O not to forget that many there had willingly sacrificed their lives for him. Lion-O guarantees he won't, as he plans to rally up the ThunderCats to kill Mumm Ra once and for all. The Blame Game and two more ThunderCats. As shackled Wily Kit helps Mumm Ra bathe, he wonders what Lion-O would think if he saw her that way. Though she was treated better as Mumm Ra's concubine, it also felt more traitorous, unlike Chitara, who had demanded to be placed in the mines. He theorizes that Lion-O would be ashamed to learn that Wily Kit hadn't even tried to escape, and that all she could do was stare in anger. After his bath, he calls for Wily Cat, who bandages him up once again. Mumm Ra is joyous as he could not wait to see Lion-O's reaction to how badly Chitara has been treated, and how much she hated Lion-O. He wonders if Chitara would kill Lion-O, as she blamed everything that happened on him. He considers taking her as his slave after everything was done with, as she would be more of a challenge than Wily Kit, giving him greater satisfaction when she broke. In a fort, Vulture Man struggles to figure out the bow staff and the bolo whip. He asks Tigra to share how it would work, but Tigra tells him it would only work for Thunderian. A guard standing behind him is angered by his snarky reply and whips him. Vulture Man is fed up with living under Mumm Ra, eating his table scraps like his lapdog, and feels he's not much better off than the Thunderians. Slythe asks him to suck it up, as they aren't going anywhere soon. Though Slythe too wanted to go home, he knew he didn't stand a chance against Mumm Ra, and wished he had defeated him when they were still on Third Earth. Nearby, Monkeyan leers at Chitara, who is chained to a pillar. Outside, Lion-O hesitates to attack, as he is not sure whether his fellow ThunderCats are inside, as the Eye of Thundera could not see inside. When Snarf confirms, he walks in through the front door, as the guards there did not know he was back and use Snarf as a distraction. Inside, Vultureman tries to get information on how to use the magic whip from Chitara, but she refuses to indulge him and spits at him inside. Angered, Vultureman raises a staff to kill her, but Slythe pulls it away, as she wouldn't be of any help if she was dead. Slythe respects Chitara as she's strong and doesn't break under any pressure. He wishes his men would be that way too, but he was a leader of cowards. Maybe to remind her of how alone she really is, Slythe tells her that her boyfriend Panthro has escaped. Suddenly, Snarf arrives, distracting them all while Lion-O frees Tigra. Tigra, now armed with his whip, attacks the guards and defeats them all. Panthro breaks the chains with sheer power. Lion-O greets her, but Chitara lands a resounding slap on his face before walking out. Tigra doesn't blame Lion-O, but clearly there are others who do. He tells his leader not to worry, and time would heal all wounds. Back at Mumm Ra's pyramid, Mumm Ra cackles in glee, knowing Chitara's hate and anger hurts Lion-O more than Mumm Ra's sword ever would. But that doesn't mean that he would spare Lion-O the sting of his sword. Wily Cat then asks Mumm Ra whether all he had to do was lead the ThunderCats into the pyramid in exchange for his and his sister's freedom. As long as the ThunderCats think they were surprising him, Mumm Ra tells him that he and Wily Kit were free. As my heart dropped, Wily Kit agreed to betray his clan. Why would you do that, cub? Wily Cat had been so beaten in his life that he was sure the ThunderCats were not going to succeed. His logic was that, through his betrayal, at least he and his sister would be spared. Though faulty, this is the logic of someone who probably tortured and had to see his sister tortured every single day for nearly 5 years. I can't blame him for what he's about to do. Knowing that the others would not believe he escaped without a fight, Wily Cat gives himself scars on his face, chest and shoulder before entering the cat's lair, where the others were hiding. Mumm Ra asks Wily Kit if she would forgive him, and taunts her that it wasn't even hard to turn him as he betrayed their people without the slightest hesitation. This was too much even for Wily Kit, and she attacks him, and he uses his magic to subdue her quickly, reminding her of her place as his slave. He then asks her to direct her ire towards her brother, as it was his choice. He was actually enjoying following every one of Mumm Ra's orders to the T. Calling her kitten creepily as possible, Mumm Ra tells her that he hadn't turned her brother evil, but merely nurtured the evil that was already in him. He wonders if he could have gotten Wily Cat to sell off his sister, but that would have to wait for later, as the cauldron shows Lion-O and his friends again. Lion-O wonders what happened to Wily Kit and Wily Cat, as the Eye of Thundera did not show them to him. Tigra tells him to consider that they might be in Mumm Ra's pyramid. Chitara begins the blame game soon after, asking him why he didn't return for so long. But Lion-O reminds her that he has no idea how time was going outside the book, and that it was her fault for not fetching him even after so long had passed. With a loud punch, Chitara reminds him that he had asked them not to use the key. Snarf, surprisingly, is the voice of reason amidst the chaos, as he reminds everyone that they have bigger fish to fry. They had no time to fight amongst themselves and to assign blame, as they now need to focus on taking out Mumm Ra. Lion-O accepts the blame for everything and knows that he can't change the past, but he can stop Mumm Ra. For that, he needed all the help he could get, as he didn't do it alone. Tigra is glad that he finally understands it and asks him the plan. Just then, Wily Cat stumbles in, warning everyone that they are not safe. He urges them to rescue Wily Kit, offering to take them to the pyramid through the way he escaped. While Panthro breaks his shackles, Wily Cat pushes them to attack right away, as Mumm Ra sleeps during the day, and that's the only time he is vulnerable. Tigra tries to slow him down, but Wily Kit pretends all hyped up to finally having the chance to take down Mumm Ra. Tired of being cautious, Chitara agrees with Wily Cat's plan, and Lion-O rallies to take the fight to Mumm Ra. What I don't understand is that Wily Cat did not show the slightest hint of surprise when he saw Lion-O, which should have been a dead giveaway. Panthro cried, Tigra sighed, and Chitara punched. They were all shocked to see Lion-O. Come on, ThunderCats, be smarter. Back to the story. Mumm Ra is glad of Wily Cat's flawless betrayal and guides his generals inside the magic cauldron. He commands the ancient spirits of evil to bestow his generals with ever-living power so they could destroy the ThunderCats. Meanwhile, Wily Cat leads them through the drainage and into the pyramid. The ThunderCats take down the reptilian guards in there without breaking a sweat and easily enter the room Mumm Ra was in. As soon as Wily Cat sees Mumm Ra by the cauldron holding a chain that leashed Wily Kit, he lunges at him. Panthro tries to stop him, as he and Lion-O would lead the attack. Mumm Ra calls him an ignorant fool for thinking he attacked and tells Panthro and Wily Cat just return to his master. Wily Cat asks Mumm Ra to release him and his sister, but as anyone would have expected, Mumm Ra laughs in his face. He is an evil undead wizard, man. You thought he would keep his promise? Mumm Ra reminds Wily Cat he's the villain who eradicated his entire species, and he just saw Wily Cat betray without batting an eye, so he didn't trust him. Chitara uses the distraction to attack, but Mumm Ra throws her at the wall with his magic. To make sure Wily Cat didn't come back to haunt him, Mumm Ra threw him into the bubbling magic cauldron. Mumm Ra then addressed the ThunderCats, asking them not to blame Wily Cat. It was Mumm Ra who had set things in motion years ago, and if they needed to blame someone, they didn't need to look further than their arrogant and stupid ruler. Mumm Ra's generals, who had been marinating in the magic cauldron, rise to attack them when Wily Kit mourns her dead twin. The final standoff. As the fight between the generals and the ThunderCats is bound to get super messy, Mumm Ra pulls Wily Kit by her leash, telling her there's no need for his kitten to watch the carnage. And what a carnage it was! 5 whole pages of ThunderCats giving the mutant generals their just desserts. In his chamber, Mumm Ra asks Wily Kit how it feels to have her brother betray her kingdom, see him killed in front of her eyes, and see her friends one last time before they too meet the same fate as her brother. Wily Kit rightfully calls him a bastard, and Mumm Ra replies with a resounding slap. Now that she was showing some spirit, Mumm Ra realized she was useless to him, and she would just mourn and pout about her dead loved one, so he decides to free her, with advice not to join her friends if she wanted to live. Wily Kit is a ThunderCat after all, so she immediately joins the fight. Mumm Ra then asks his magic cauldron to transform his decaying form into a hulking fight-ready body and wait for Lion-O to come to his death. Outside, Chitara and Wily Kit team up, smash Monkey and Skull inside, while Slithe promises to bleed Lion-O as he wasn't allowed to kill him. That spirit does not last for long, as within moments Lion-O throws him in the cauldron and he drowns. Lion-O asks his friends to manage and enters Mumm Ra's chamber to get rid of him for good. Mumm Ra thanks Lion-O as soon as he sees him for allowing him to redecorate Thundera with his vision, and once he kills Lion-O, he plans to take over the entire universe. Lion-O promises to vanquish him, just like he vanquished his mutants, but Mumm Ra laughs at this as he knows his generals are all imbeciles. Mumm Ra didn't care about them, he only cared about Lion-O's sword. When Lion-O finds that out, he thrusts it to the floor, reminding him that Mumm Ra didn't need it to completely raise Thundera, and he won't need it to vanquish Mumm Ra. With his bare hands, Lion-O attacks and keeps it up for a long time. Unfortunately, Mumm Ra is stronger. He topples Lion-O and pulls out the sword to kill him. Panthro jumps in, and his punch makes Mumm Ra drop the sword. He binds Mumm Ra's hands behind his back, allowing Lion-O to punch his chest. Immediately, Mumm Ra is reduced to ashes, and Panthro says the 2 words everyone said while watching the Stranger Things finale. That's it? Lion-O has unfortunate news though. Mumm Ra would return. They hadn't killed him yet. He would return again and again and again till he was weakened enough to die. Chitara then asks Lion-O if he's learned any lesson today. His arrogance almost cost them their victory. She reminds him they were a team, and it was not his battle to fight alone. Tigra adds that the code of Thundera is truth, honor, justice, and loyalty. They were loyal to him, and he needed to be loyal to them. Lion-O apologizes and tells them that whatever happened would always be his fault. Snarf, the voice of reason, speaks again and asks everyone to stop blaming, as all that matters is the task ahead. Wily Kit then leads them all outside to liberate the planet. As they leave, Mumm Ra is resurrected, and he makes up his mind to return with more obstacles, but for all that he needs is a general. Not any of the big brawned idiots he now had, but someone stronger and cunning. He intends to train his general to be a wizard like him, to cast him in his image, and someone they would at least expect, as they thought he was dead. Mumm Ra might have lost Wily Kit, but he still had a lot of hopes for Wily Cat. Oof, that was insane. I understand why people think this ruined their childhood, though. One look at the comic would tell you that this is not child-friendly. So many deaths, and Wily Kit is straight up called a concubine. Though it is super dark, you must admit the story is very captivating. It makes me want to read more too. I wonder how Mumm Ra would convince Wily Cat to be a villain again, against his own people, when he's not a slave desperate for peace and freedom. I do think ThunderCats The Return is underrated and gets a bad rap because of the adult overtones, but the art is captivating and so is the plot. It should get the recognition it deserves. What do you think about the comic book? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, you know what to do, right? Like, share, and subscribe. We will soon be back with more awesome stuff. Until there, take care.